All right, so let's start right away by looking at an example of a matrix equation right here on my screen. So I have for us, it's a matrix times x, and we'll talk about what x is in a moment, equals 2 by 1 matrix, 6, 5. So it's a 2 by 2 times x equals a 2 by 1 matrix. What this means is that we are trying to figure out what a third matrix, so this will be like our first matrix and our second matrix, we want to find that third matrix that if I were to substitute x, that's a capital X, with a whole matrix, we want to know what would that matrix be that would give us this equation. Now you may be wondering why this is a 2 by 2 and this is a 2 by 1. But you'll remember that if I am multiplying by a matrix, there are two conditions that I need to have met. Let me actually erase, get rid of that arrow. So this is the 2 by 2, and this is the 2 by 1. If I'm multiplying two matrices, and this is something by something else, I need the inside values to be the same. So I know that this x is going to have a first dimension of 2 that's necessary in order for us to be able to multiply. And then the outside values tell us what the answer matrix is. So in this case, we know that the answer matrix is 2 by 1. 2 rows, 1 column. So that means that this value here has to be a 1 so that I can get 2 by 1 as my answer. So that leaves us knowing that x is going to be some kind of, let's circle this, 2 by 1 matrix that would complete this equation and make it equal on each side. So that's what this actually means. Another way of us that we can write this is we can use capital letters, because as you hopefully recall from the first lesson, we often name matrices by capital letters. So this A, capital A, would represent the 2 by 2 matrix. Again, the capital X represents our mystery matrix, which we know is 2 by 1 now. And B will represent our answer matrix, 2 by 1, 6, 5. Okay, so we want to know, how do we solve for the X matrix? Now you remember from our first topic video that we said in a typical equation, let's say I used lowercase letters in that example, A times X equals B. If I wanted to get an answer or isolate X, I would divide both sides by A. And then that would give me X by itself, because these would cancel, and I'd get X equals B over A. But I also said there's another way of talking about division. Instead of saying let's divide both sides by A, I could also say let's multiply both sides by the inverse of A. That'd be 1 over A. Now if you're wondering what an inverse is, I didn't specifically outline this in the first video. The inverse is anything that makes the answer 1. Or I should, at least in multiplication, it's something that would make it 1, because 1 is kind of our neutral value when it comes to to multiplication, because if I multiply by anything by 1, it stays the same. So if I have 1 over A times A, that becomes essentially 1. So that's what makes 1 over A the inverse. So what do we need to do? Coming back to our original equation here, what do we need to do with our matrix equation to get x by itself? Well, I either need to divide by a matrix, which I've already hinted is not possible. We don't talk about dividing by a matrix. Or I need to multiply by the inverse, and that is what we need to do. So let me write in a different color over here just to outline. I'm not going to actually solve it right now. I'm just going to outline how we'll solve it. I know that we have a situation A times X equals B. I want to solve for X, and so what I'm going to do is multiply both sides by the inverse of A. Now something that's important to know with matrix multiplication is that order matters. So unlike this equation over here, I could multiply 1 over A on the left side, or I could multiply it on the right side and I get the same answer, right? However, that's not true with matrix multiplication. So we are going to multiply both sides on the left, and it really does matter. If you don't believe me, try it out. If you multiply in different orders, you get different answers. Both sides by A inverse. And what that's going to allow us to do is cancel the A, and we'll get an answer. X equals whatever this is. A inverse times B. Okay, again, this is the end of the topic 2 video. I haven't solved anything, but we've set up a plan for how we're going to solve. In order to get x by itself, we need to divide this value away. But we can't divide by a matrix. We can only multiply by the inverse, which has the same effect. So that leaves us with one key question. What on earth is the inverse of a matrix, and how do we find it? And so that is the material we'll talk about in topic 3.